First, let me welcome you to our classroom, and I must apologize for not being able to be here in person. This is one of the evenings that I most look forward to each year. It's really lovely to establish a face-to-face connection with the adults in my students' lives, and it saddens me not to be here tonight, so I really apologize. Before I get into it, there are some instructions on the backboard as to what to do with the index cards. I want to be able to contact you in a variety of ways and perhaps know something about your student that I otherwise might not know. I also want to extend an invitation to you to come back and meet with me face-to-face in the flesh. You'll see my contact information, including my personal cell phone number, which you are welcome to use. It doesn't mean that I'll always answer it, but it is a way to reach me when I'm not here at school. Okay. Let me say something briefly about myself and how I ended up here in this profession, just to give you some context as to where I'm coming from and my approach to teaching as well. This is my second or third, depending on how you count, career. I'm in my 5th year of teaching, all of which have been here at Ballard. I've taught the 11th grade AP class the entire time. And I also teach seniors. I've taught seniors almost every year as well. I grew up in Geneva, Switzerland. My parents are American, but I grew up there. I went to college in Vermont. I went to a small liberal arts school called Middlebury, and I really am a passionate believer in liberal arts education. I encourage all my students to apply to Middlebury in particular, but to schools like Middlebury. I think it's a real amazing education, very broad, but also allows those who want to go into medicine or science or law to specialize as well. So that's sort of where I'm coming from. I did spend 5 post-college years in northern New Mexico skiing in the winter and waiting for winter in the summer. And I really fell in love with the sort of mashup of cultures that is there. The Latino, which they actually call Spanish in New Mexico, the Pueblo, and the Anglo. And I continue to kind of read stories and listen to music that comes from that part of the world and that explores the sort of frictions and interactions of those cultures. It's not quite as present here in Seattle, or not in that way anyway. I did want to be a writer though, and with a year detour in Michigan, I ended up here in Seattle in the 90s, and eventually got a job as a newspaper reporter and editor at a tiny paper in Marysville. Eventually that led to a job at the LA Times in the suburbs in LA. And my wife and I moved back here in 2003, and I was looking to do something that still touched on writing and literature, but also allowed me to serve my community and to be involved with in the lives of young people. And that sort of bubbled up, or teaching sort of bubbled up, and I went to Seattle University in 2005 to get my master's degree in teaching. It's also an amazing program filled with this idea of social justice, and that every student that comes into this room, into schools, is capable of dealing with complex literature, with writing clear, confident prose, and that infuses how we approach teaching, how we design curriculum, and I say we, I mean the language arts department and my colleagues at Ballard. For me, it does come out of the Seattle University ethos, and it is not enough to just say that. We do need to know where our students are coming from academically in particular, but that's not the only factor, of course. So we do spend quite a bit of time figuring out what sort of readers and writers, in the case of my classroom, are coming in to my classroom. And our curriculum reflects that belief. It's hard, especially the 11th grade AP program. So I want to say a bit about that. It is quite a bit different than traditional English class in that it stresses, at least here, nonfiction. We read a lot of essays, and we write a lot of essays, and we approach it through classic rhetoric. And there's quite a bit of Greek thrown around here in this room. But most people think that that is the best way to approach the teaching of close reading and careful writing. And it's the kind of writing not that necessarily analyzing a story, but that might be applicable to a philosophy class, an economics class, a political science class, a history class. And the way we introduce these concepts, which are virtually new to nearly everyone who comes into our classes at the 11 AP level, is at the beginning of the year through advertising. We feel like it's a medium that students know really well, and if they can understand the kind of art of persuasion, which is really one of the half of the core of rhetoric, then it's a good place to start. I'll say something briefly about the exam, the AP exam, which is in May. It has two major components. One is a writing component, and one is a reading component. The reading component is multiple choice, around very occasionally very difficult texts that could be written anywhere from last year to the 1600s. And this is really challenging, and we work really hard on teaching students and helping students decode and figure out what is sometimes archaic language and just really hard reading. And I think you'll see that during the year. You'll find that students struggle quite a bit, and they should, and it's hard. So I do want to acknowledge that. That said, we are also lovers of literature. Mr. Smith and Calderwood, who are the other AP teachers, and we will read Shakespeare. We're going to read Henry IV, Part 1, which is, for us, the Falstaff play. It's a wonderful character. We'll also read The Great Gatsby, which is in keeping to some degree with the American literature focus of the rest of the 11th grade curriculum in Seattle schools. In the spring, depending on where we are, we will also potentially read The Things They Carried, a really interesting novel about, not about the Vietnam War, but set in the Vietnam War and around the Vietnam War. I want to leave it there. Again, I am really feel terrible that I'm appearing virtually in front of you and not in the flesh. And I hope you'll forgive me. I hope I've given you some sense of where I'm coming from in terms of teaching and where the course is going. The syllabus you will find on the source, along with the College Board exit criteria for the class. They're not called exit criteria, but they are what we expect our students to be able to do come June. And again, please be in touch with me. Be in touch with me about this, about your students in particular, about the curriculum, or if you just want to sit down and just have a face-to-face, please be in touch with me. I hope you enjoy your evening. It says a lot that you are here. One of the key factors in the success of a student is the involvement of home, and that you are here on a weeknight late speaks volumes, and I look forward to being in touch with you. Thank you very much.